Welcome to the JD Power Travel Podcast. I'm Michael Taylor, and I'm joined always by Andrea Stokes, who is the practice lead for our hospitality group. Hello, Andrea.
Hello.
And Jenny Corwin, DCI Jenny Corwin, as I like to call her. She's the Director of Customer and Consumer Insights, and again, probably has a career at the BBC if she ever wants one. Anyway, hello, Jenny.
Hi, Michael.
Well, this is our year-end podcast, and what a year it's been. We were just discussing in prep for this show just what we talked about last year and what actually has happened. But I thought we'd start off by asking each other what you think was the most surprising travel research-related number that you came across this past year. And I'll start with Andrea. Andrea, what was the most surprising statistic in your studies that you saw during the year?
Well, I think, there were lots of statistics that probably weren't surprising given the environment we're in. We're still in a pandemic, and then there's a lot of, a lot of things that we, thought would be over by now. I think one interesting trend that we've seen over the past few months, I would say, over 2021 and even going into 2022, is with the sort of that, competition with home rentals, right, and home share versus hotels. The hotel industry is obviously looks at Airbnb and VRBO as competitors, and there's all kinds of talk about how that sector is doing. Airbnb went public, and sort of the competition, right, between the hotel industry and the home sharing industry. But in our study, we have been tracking hotel users who also use platforms like Airbnb or VRBO to book rentals. And we are seeing, sort of the price equation kind of declining for home rentals. They're not, consumers are less likely to choose a home rental because of price, over a hotel. So that advantage, I think, going in where, I think that everyone thought that the home rental industry was more, less expensive, and it was less expensive to rent a house versus staying in a hotel. I think that perception is declining. So it's good for the hotel industry, of course. We'll see where it goes in 2022.
Do you think that price differential is because of the demand, because people are afraid of catching COVID in more public spaces, or do you think it's just something that's a naturally occurring price differential?
Well, I do think that, the cost of home rentals have gone up. And I think when the pandemic hit, right, Airbnb, their customers are not consumers. Airbnb's customers are the hosts. And hosts were allowed to charge extra fees for cleaning or service fees or whatever they wanted to call them. And they're allowed to do that. And I think they have wide latitude to do that. And if you go on to Airbnb or one of the sites to book a rental, they advertise a nightly rate, but then, you see all of these extra fees that hosts can charge. And in the end, when you sort of add it all up, it sometimes is a lot more expensive actually than staying in a hotel, depending on the location. So, that definitely, I think, is what's driving that trend.
Well, Jenny, what was the most surprising number that you saw in your studies that you look at through the year?
Well, I don't know that I was very surprised, and it's not that I'm some great prognosticator or anything like that. It's more just realistic, right? And I know that the pandemic has really put us in an unpredictable state in travel. So I guess I was surprised to see, basically maintaining satisfaction levels in most cases, right? We saw some differentiation, but it's not like it fell off a cliff or anything like that. I think, there wasn't anything that was particularly shocking because everything was weird. So it's hard to say anything stands out amongst all of this abnormality when nothing is really normal, right? I can't think of any one thing that I was like, oh, that's super weird compared to all the rest of the weird. So
it's always what stands out across the background. And the background was so bizarre that there was nothing that stood out, right?
Exactly. It was like those. Do you remember those hidden eye pictures? And I was looking,
yes,
but the picture just never came for me.
Well, I actually had two numbers that I thought were very surprising. The first one was the percentage of people buying food, beverage, or retail at airports. And the food and beverage number stayed about the same. About 50% of people still bought something at the airport. And what's surprising to me because of it took a lot more effort to buy food and beverage at the airport. The number for retail did go down, and that didn't surprise me at all. It was, there was that the food and beverage number stayed up. So what we tell airports is it's very similar, very consistent from airport to airport. About 50% of people that come on the airport actually buy something at food and beverage. And it's down to about 28% or so of people buying at retail. And that usually number is somewhere in the mid 30s to low 40s, which doesn't surprise me at all. The other surprising number, shocking number really, was what people were paying for a rental car in the last half of this year, which just absolutely exploded. Kristen Carpenter, who works for Jenny, helps me on my consumer insight stuff, and she came up with some great charts for our rental car clients. It showed that prior to the pandemic, or at least the first half of the year, prior to the price increase, the chip shortage, the automobile shortage, and labor shortage, that about 50% of people were paying less than $40 a day for a rental car. And as a very small percentage, 25% were paying more than $70 per rental car. And that's flipped. Now more than 50% are paying significantly more than $70 for a rental car. And as I probably mentioned on this podcast before, I'm still planning my trip to Scotland, hopefully in June, when hopefully they'll let people back in the country to play golf. And usually we run an SUV, a four-wheel drive, and with an automatic, of course, because it's hard enough for me to drive in the left-hand lane, let alone drive a stick that's on my left hand as well. So an automatic SUV we have rented in the past for the week for about $600-700. It is now being the rental, and I'm talking about June rentals, not rentals next week. June rentals, $2,400 a week for a vehicle, which would be more than we would pay for everything else on the trip, including airfare and golf. So maybe that's three numbers that are most surprising to me, but all ties in back to the rental car number. Anyway, so great. Our second topic today is what we predict for 2022. So, Jen, I'm going to start with you because you had that weird background. Let's see how that weird background is going to look in 2022. What do you think is going to happen?
I think we should continue to expect the unexpected. No one knows exactly where things are going to go. But one thing I think I'm pretty sure on, right, is people are tired of not going anywhere. And so I do think we're still going to see travel demand continuing to increase. But I don't see the labor force catching up with it as fast as we would like to. So I think, and I'm looking at some statistics from USTA in terms of monthly jobs added to the leisure and hospitality industry. And if we continue at the current pace, we're not going to see a full recovery until November 2022. So I think people are going to want to continue to be patient. I know we all want to get back out there, and that's great. Let's, obviously safely and whatever not. But I think we're still going to experience some struggles with the labor shortage across the industry throughout next year.
And Andrea, what do you think are your predictions for 2022?
Yeah, Jenny's right. Hospitality really is suffering from a labor shortage, and there are a lot of, different solutions that I think the industry is thinking about to kind of help remedy that. Whether those solutions will be successful or not, it's hard to tell. But that, and I think we still will see kind of some consumer dissatisfaction with food service. So any company that's providing any kind of food service, whether it's restaurants or hotels, will kind of see those supply chain issues affect both the variety of food that can be offered and also the quality. I've been reading a lot of articles about, restaurants shrinking their menus simply because, they have to. It's not profitable to have a large menu with a lot of variety. So we do know that, hotel users do look for food and beverage in the hotel. They still continue to use food and beverage in the hotel, as much as any time in the past. So they are experiencing, though, some dissatisfaction with what's being offered. And I think that will continue into 2022 for sure.
All right. Well, my prediction is very much along the lines of your two predictions, that I believe that the rental car shortage is going to continue through the entire year. I don't think if the pipeline had any chance of being restarted, we would have seen signs of it by now. And the chip shortage that's preventing the original equipment manufacturers from producing cars that where rental car companies can replenish their stock just isn't going to happen. And it's going to be very, very herky-jerky throughout the year. We might have a month where we see some deliveries of vehicles, and then the next month there'll be none. That's one of my predictions there. That will force prices to remain high. And I think that the rental car companies will be wondering how much damage are they going to do to their brand with these price increases and maintaining these price increases. I know that they obviously have artificial intelligence and a lot of computer modeling that says we should be charging this much for a vehicle when we have this many on hand and the demand is so high. But again, $2,400 for a week doesn't really endear you. No one's going to spend $2,400 a week and sign up for a JD Power survey and said, yeah, I rate the company 10 out of 10. It was really great. Really delivering that $2,400. I just don't think that's going to happen. And my second prediction is that I believe that one of the major airlines is going to take a stand on doing away with masks in flight or making them optional for folks. I think that two airline CEOs this past week kind of floated a trial balloon and really got their hands slapped by social media and certain people in the federal government and kind of walked some of their comments back. But I believe that's going to be happening in the last half of the year, simply because it's just much easier and it creates so much stress for the cabin crews to enforce those rules. And I think that we'll be seeing some of that relaxed, simply because the cabin air filters they have today do a fantastic job, and the air gets recirculated every 4 minutes. So it's one of the better quality airs that you're going to breathe, whether you're on terra firma or 35,000 feet in the air. So anyway, well, once again, we've reached the end of our podcast. I'd like to thank Jenny Corwin, who's our Director of Consumer Insights, and Andrea Stokes, who's our practice lead for hospitality. I'm Michael Taylor. I'm practice lead for travel, meaning airports, airlines, and rental cars for JD Power. And we're wishing you and your family a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully we'll see you again on this podcast in January. If you'd like to learn more about what we do at JD Power, you can easily done. Go to jdpower.com, go up the upper right-hand corner, click on business, scroll down to travel, and then you'll be seeing all the things that Andrea, Jennifer, and myself do all year round, and hopefully we'll see you again in 2022. Thank you very much for listening.